All right, y'all. Good evening and welcome to episode 160 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and new special guest. I'm Christian Dallas Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans, also the head ref for two of these series that we're going to talk about tonight. And this episode, we are going to host a roundtable on the new hot format in paintball, 3v3 XBall. And we are joined by Sasha Zucker, who I consider the pioneer of the format. We got Jonathan J. Bird Salas, who quickly followed suit with adopting it here in Texas. And then, of course, NXL and Major League Paintball president Tom Cole, who has brought the format to the Pro Division and to ESPN and will have it available for everyone to play at the upcoming NXL World Cup. Gentlemen, how you all doing this evening?
Doing awesome.
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
I'm great, Christian. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. So this one is brought to us by the XTPL events. So all three of you have been on the show a handful of times in the past, but for those listening that might be joining us for the first time, let's just go through a quick round of introductions. So could you please tell us your name, the singular or plural series that you run, and how long you've been on the organizing or promoting side of things? Let's start with Jay Bird.
So Jay Bird, here out of Splat Zone Indoor Paintball. We run the Trinity series. Last year, we started doing the Double Dragon, like 2v2 series, which we're actually looking forward to picking back up. But this season, we've really focused on the 3v3 XBall format.
All right. Sasha?
Yeah, Sasha Zucker. I just started hosting tournaments a little bit under a year ago, so I'm still really new, but however I have been competing since 2012 and have competed in almost every format. I think like 1-on-1, and so 3-on-3, 5-on-5, 10v10, 7-on-7, I think at one point. Mounds, which was great. I wish I could do that more. But I decided to start doing 3-on-3 because I looked around and saw that there was no 3-on-3 going on. And that's where everyone started. So it seemed like a no-brainer to get that going in San Antonio, which has never had a consistent series locally as long as I've been here.
All right. Love it. All right. And then last but certainly not least, Tom.
I'm Tom Cole. I'm the president of Major League Paintball, which runs the NXL, NXL Europe, the ICPL, and like the Latin American Championships. And I've been doing it. I've been running the NXL since 2015. Before that, I was with the PSP and the NPPL. Probably 30 years, maybe.
Wow.
All right. Love it. All right. So, Sasha, this one's just for you, and this one's brought to us by you, the San Antonio 3v3 series. So with everything that I can find that's out there and through my searches on PB League, so your series was the first to create and test out this specific 3v3 XBall format. So tell us more about the inspiration behind creating it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone plays XBall, right? But I didn't want to do a 5-on-5 XBall series locally. I wanted to focus on 3-on-3, and I knew I wanted beginners and like D6 and D5, but I call them beginners and novice because I do like the idea Tom did earlier last year that didn't really go so well, but of not using these letters and numbers, but just making it more a lingo that normal people can understand. Like everyone knows what a beginner is, if you're a beginner, right? But then the other complaint that I had was, immediately started hearing from my friends locally are like, well, I want to play in the event. And I knew that I was not going to be able to support having all the divisions. I know that NXL, it strangely uses beginner, novice, intermediate, advanced to describe 3-on-3, which is, I don't know why they only do that in 3-on-3. That'd be interesting thing to talk about. But I decided to do an open 3-on-3 just so everyone can play, because when you play locally, like you just play whoever shows up. All the Division 4 guys are playing against semi-pro, sometimes pro players. So you guys are playing each other anyway. And I made it, kept it 3-on-3 because it's much easier to get a team together. And I used the XBall format because all these guys that are at the higher level, they're only playing XBall. There's no more sometimes there's like Division 3 5-man or 5v5 or whatever. But those aren't really looked at as, I mean, that's not the format you're going to find in most leagues, right? Like even the local leagues are doing XBall. That's what everyone wants to play. As Tom's pointed out in many interviews, like you offer these other formats, and if he stopped doing XBall, someone else would probably start doing XBall and people would go play in that league. So it's clearly a good format that people want to play. Nothing wrong with it. But I did want to keep it to 3-on-3. And, you know, it seemed to work out. I mean, immediately we got teams in. We only had one event where we only had, I think, 2 or 3 teams pay. So I canceled it for that event. And then the 4th event, I decided to leave it open and till the very last second and got 5 teams. And that's just enough. Like for a local little event, like that's perfect. You know, 5 teams get done in the afternoon. Everyone has fun. But yeah, that's basically the story there, is just give the local players that have ranked out of like Division 4 XBall locally a place to play where they can just, it's not hard to put a team together. It's not expensive. And it turns out, I think, to be good practice for them, like a practice tournament.
Yeah, for sure. As someone who is more on, I guess, the player side of things, granted, I haven't had the opportunity to play the 3v3 XBall format yet, being the head ref. I will say that the pace of play with XBall is the main attraction, I feel like, versus like, you know, everybody likes the, I guess, the price point of going to play 3v3 or 5v5, but not so much the pace of play where you play a point. Depending on the size of the event, you could be waiting 30, 45 minutes in between each single point that you play. So 3v3 XBall seems like a happy medium where costs are down. You don't have to get as many of, you don't have to fill as many roster spots in order to be competitive, and you're still like getting those high intensity moments with the clock, with scoreboard and all that. So yeah, for this one is for Tom and for Jaybird. So when you both first heard of this 3v3 XBall format, or maybe you even saw a little bit of what Sasha was doing, what were your first impressions?
I'll let Jaybird go first.
So, you know, we had kind of touched on the XBall format with our Double Dragon event a couple of like last year, at the end of last year. And then I saw that, you know, Sasha was doing the 3v3 XBall as well. And I just feel like it's a good fast pace. Like you were saying, like Sasha touched on that. It's just an opportunity for people to play a lot more points, right? As opposed to your typical 3-man event where you show up, you play 1 point, you sit around, you wait. You know, it's like you're paying for this tournament and you're not really getting a full amount of play time. You might as well just go practice, if that makes sense, because you can get more spend if you do it that way. So the XBall is really cool. I really enjoy that format, and it helps to really even the playing field, right? So a team could have a good point, but not necessarily be a better team, if that makes sense. So you can have the opportunity to come back, make those adjustments. And we've had some points out here where they're playing 5, 6, 7 points in one 5-minute little series just because of the pace of it.
All right. Tom, what were your first impressions on hearing this?
Well, I mean, I was happy that he kind of like started doing some stuff. We had pitched this idea to the industry probably 2016, 2017. I felt that we did some research. We found that most people's first tournament was 3-man, right? And we noticed that a lot of people had stopped running 3-mans. And a lot of that is the fault of the Premier Leagues, because as they start phasing out traditional single point matches, everybody wanted to go to XBall. And you really see this when you go to like the rest of the world, emerging markets and stuff, because those people typically have less disposable income than we do here in the United States. And they're still chasing the XBall thing, even if it's really hurts their local market and their local team counts. So in the US, even local leagues here do really well with the XBall format, but there's a lot of customers that I believe we're missing out on because we're not offering them a more affordable and easy to build a team around format. Obviously, the more bodies you have on the team, the better a big money roster is going to go. Like if you had 15 guys, it would obviously be a team that had 15 good players would probably win more often. But we all kind of know 2 other good players, or at least we think we do. And that's kind of the joy of it, that it kind of gives everybody a chance, and it's affordable. And I really feel like we needed the vertical integration. We needed to start at the pros and kind of suck people up into that to make them feel like this is a real league. You could be, NASCAR, Formula One's kind of always been my argument, right? Like we can have a viable pro league that plays 3-man on down and a viable league that plays 5-man XBall all the way down. So I'm kind of excited about it. So.
Yeah, for sure. And this one is for Jaybird and for Sasha. So this one is brought to us by Jaybird's series, the Splat Zone Trinity 3-man. So both of your series have also made sure to include the beginner and the novice divisions. And while 3v3 X-Ball is certainly the new hot trend, 3v3 beginner events, to Tom Cole's point, are a very important entry point into tournament paintball. So what were both of your goals for each of your series as a whole across all of your divisions? So let's start with Sasha.
I mean, I'm gonna probably repeat some stuff I said in the last show, which was really recently, but my goal was just to give an opportunity for players who were new to be able to get into the sport if you go to my website, sat3v3.com, you'll see it right there. I mean, it says, the mission statement is right there. It says, I can't repeat it off the top of my head. The San Antonio 3v3 Paintball Series provides local players with a fun, affordable opportunity to experience the excitement of tournament paintball. If I'm watching MajorLeaguePaintball.com and I'm watching all these, I was just watching before this. I watched Kirill Perhidny at the Cincinnati Open, like run through the middle and do a 5-pack. And that looks amazing. That looks fun. I remember when I first saw the first ESPN2 Smart Parts tournament, and I was immediately in. Like I was like, I want to know all about this world. I want to do this. But back then I was fortunate enough to have like the Houston Rookie League, which is a little 3-man league that sort of get introduced to paintball. But that's all gone, right? I looked around just like Tom did and noticed that where are the 3-man tournaments? Where's the entry level tournaments? Because right now what's going on is if you want to get into paintball, the only real league that comes to San Antonio other than Fitz series up there is the USXBL. And if you go and compete in USXBL in Division 5 X-Ball, I mean, you're competing against teams that already have huge rosters and are training like professionals trained, or at least the way I would think professionals trained maybe 10 years ago. I mean, the professionals train a lot more now, but they're doing stuff that we wouldn't even consider doing when I started out, right? Hiring coaches, shooting 2 cases a day, 2-day weekends. That's just not good for the sport. If you're talking about growing paintball, you don't want someone to come in and say, I want to do paintball. Okay, you're going to have to spend thousands of dollars, make this huge time commitment. And by the way, you have to find like 7 or 8 other guys that are equally committed. Like Tom was saying, it's much easier to find 2 other people and play in a tournament. And then one thing I'll say also about the way I run, I do the traditional 3-man for beginner and novice. I purposely don't do X-Ball because I think it is actually a good thing to have that break of 35 minutes, because these people are going into the sport new and they don't know what they're doing a lot of the time, so they need that time to figure out what they're going to do in their next play. And they also might not be in great shape. When you go into even Division 5, you're competing against athletes at the highest if you want to win the tournament. If you look at, I like to talk about the Gunners a lot, but those guys have got some real bona fide athletes and they're winning everything in Division 5, or they just won the novice division this past weekend. And you need to have that stepping stone in all sports. You have to have that stepping stone. Paintball is not any different than any other sport, and that's what we've been missing is here at the bottom end. Sacrificing to the high end of the sport.
Yeah, for sure. Jaybird, what were your goals for your series?
I mean, same thing, right? One of the main things that we wanted to do is just to bring more players out of like that rec ball realm and bring them into the side of the competitive paintball, right? I'm fortunate and blessed that I have a field here, and a lot of our our fields, like our indoor field and our outdoor pro field, that one is geared towards, that traditional XBall format, right? Even when we have birthday parties, we teach them that XBall format. We put 8 minutes on the clock. We let them play. They switch sides, all that stuff. And our end goal is to bring people into the competitive side of paintball, because ultimately I feel like those are the people that will continue to feed the sport and grow it, so that financially it can sustain in the future, right? The big hurdle, if you will, that a lot of people have is, to be competitive, you have to have at least $1,200 to drop on some gear to start playing, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do for this particular series, especially for our Division 6 players, was we went out and bought basically 6 setups, right? Ether 3s with PAL loaders that have speed feeds and some tanks. And we have those available for people. And so guests that come to play the low impact paintball here, that kind of get into it, we'll hit them up with, hey, by the way, this date we have a beginners tournament. It's strictly for beginners. Nobody with previous paintball experience can play in that division. And if you don't have the equipment, we have these available here for you guys to do it, with the hope that they're going to play, they're going to enjoy it, they're going to decide, hey, you know what, this is worth me spending $1,000 to buy a brand new setup and get started, right? And then kind of help to feed the pipeline, basically, to keep getting fresh blood and new players into the sport.
Yeah, I love that you touched up on the like the barrier to entry both of you have, especially with cost of equipment. Like looking at other sports out there or hobbies, like because if you think about it, paintball is not competing with other series or other paintball formats. They're competing with things like Top Golf or bowling leagues or go-kart racing. They're competing with these other recreational ways to spend your time at the entry level anyway. And having the barrier to entry so high as it is with equipment when it comes to paintball, just seeing y'all find these other ways to like kind of lower that or remove some of those, like with Sasha making sure to keep the beginner and the D5, because D5 XBall is certainly not the entry point that it was 7 or 8 years ago. Definitely not. Yeah. So yeah, this one is for Tom and brought to us by BEMRAP. So you brought the 3v3 XBall format as a tester to the Thursday before the NXL event over in Cincinnati. And I think it had very good reception and ended up being a very entertaining product. The 5v5 version of that same field played a little bit slower, but watching the 3v3 points, it was quite entertaining. So what upsides do you see in this format versus the current 5v5 XBall?
That's a really good question. The 3-man just plays faster, right? On the same size field as a 5-man. So it plays faster. You kind of have to protect yourself, and usually protecting yourself means going to get the guy in front of you somehow. I mean, there's always a blind spot when you're playing 3 guys on 3 guys. And we've noticed a slowdown in just the playing of the fields. I think we average about 6 points a match in a XBall match, 5-man XBall match. And that's playing for 15 minutes. And we're playing the same, if not more points in 7 minutes in a 3v3. So, and people want to play. They don't want to just sit behind their bunker. I mean, if I told you when you were starting, we're going to design a game where you're just going to sit behind your bunker and shoot a lane for an hour, no one would want to do that, right? That's not what we envisioned that we were going to do when we started playing, and that's kind of what we end up doing. You see those guys walking there with 10 pods on their back, you know what their goal is, and no one enjoys it, right? The players don't. The coaches probably enjoy it, right? Because they're the ones that come up with the play. But the players, I don't think really love it either. They just don't want to be the first one to make the mistake, and I think 3-man gets rid of that. I unfortunately, I think the way to make 5-man that fast would be either to change a core product with the game, which is one of the things we were messing around with, like a center objective and stuff like that, but I still think it's going to be challenging as long as the field's that size. And I don't believe I have it in me to make the fields bigger, because then we've been messing everybody up that's already built a splat zone, right? Would be, I'd be getting a scathing email from him about changing the field dimension by 25 feet and making all of his fields irrelevant, So I think it's good to offer both two products. I mean, I do think the 5-man has a lot of nuances and a lot of like things that true professors of the game love. You know what I mean? It is a very cerebral game and all that stuff. And 3-man is just a little faster. And you don't need as deep a roster. And there's a lot of things you don't need, right? A lot less paint, a lot less everything. So on that side, it's making it affordable, and also affordable for team owners, right? So not every team is being funded by themselves as individuals. Some teams have an owner that's trying to build a team, and it's just logistically a lot more sustainable with 3 or 4 guys. And then we have the television aspect, which they specifically asked for 3-man as one of the reasons why we started going down this path. And so it's just cheaper and easier to film and easier to build an audience on 3 guys to build fans out of them.
Yeah, totally fair. So I know you said it's going to be difficult to make any changes to the current 5v5 XBall, but do you think there are any adjustments or lessons that 5v5 XBall can learn from the 3v3 emergence?
Well, that it really is inherently to the rules of the game, is why the game is playing slow, because we're playing the exact same layout. So if you're not comparing apples to apples, it's easy to say that was a slow layout or we designed something wrong. And then when we played the 3-man, like I could call Sasha and be like, how many points did you play this weekend? He's like 20 a match. And I'm like, you must have had a really good layout. When we play them on the exact same layouts, we're seeing this distinctive a difference. It means something's going to have to change in the 5-man. Either we've got to write a rule that really incentivizes people to attack, or we're going to have to make the fields bigger or less bunkers or whatever that option is.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think it does. It is worth mentioning that at least with your series, with the 5v5 XBall, 3v3 XBall being on the exact same field, we're seeing that I think, like in general, the more options that players have, the more holes that there are that need to be covered, and that creates opportunity on the field. So I do think that that route, keeping the 3v3 layout on more or less a field intended for 5v5 is going to keep things exciting.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like, you don't know things till you test it and you do it, right? That's really the bottom line. And so many people, when they heard about the format, emailed me and said it's got to be a small field and less bunkers and all that. And I intuitively believe that the larger field with a lot of bunkers was going to help make people moves, because you really don't know where it's at. You don't want to have 3 bunkers. I'm always going to the left Dorito. You're going to the right square, and someone's going to the center block. You know what I mean? I'm making those bunkers up, and then we just end up gun battling with our mirror, right? That's not that fun. I like different options for people, and that's kind of what's happened.
Love it. Sasha, did you have something you wanted to add?
I have a lot of thoughts because I've played around with field design for my series, because I have I design, and because I'm the one swinging the hammer, like no one gets to tell me what to do. So one thing that I've done is I don't use the giant bricks at all on mine, and I use purposely fewer bunkers. I take out, for example, in this last layout, I didn't have the small cakes or any of the mini walls or whatever you want to call them, mini win bunkers. I took those out mainly because they always get leaks in them and I always have to replace one. But I think what something, just as someone who's played 5-on-5 XBall, all the NXL layouts, who watches every event, including the ones where there's only 1 point or 2 points scored in 2 minutes. I'll sit there and watch the whole dang thing. What's going on, I think, is, in 5-on-5, the coach, I think if you listen to the coaches' show, they'll tell you that the coaches make that decision to play slow. So it's really a choice. Ryan Gray will say that, Russian Legion can play slow if they want. They can play fast, and they play fast because that's their style. With 3-on-3, without those bricks there, and in this last event, I also made a smaller field. You don't really playing slow is a disadvantage, right? Because you can't lock down the field. You can't have someone covering just sitting there and you've covered every possible spot. So you actually have to do what I call, and what I've heard people call, playing paintball. You get to play paintball, right? On 5-on-5, like, I understand, like, you can set up, and as a coach, I've done this, as a player, I've done this. You set up 5 guys or 5 players, excuse me, and you can have them watch every possible gap, right? So that someone that's attacking, like, they have to gunfight you to get through. And of course, we know that gunfighting's risky. Like, you don't want a gunfight. So in the worst situation in paintball is to have a guy pointing a gun at you, shooting back at you, right? What you want to do is you want to be shooting them in the pack, behind them. That's really hard to do when you've got, 5-on-5 or even 5-on-4 locking down, right? So with 3-on-3, you can't do that. If you remove even more bunkers, it makes it even harder to do a defensive play. It seems really clear to me that it's just the way that by having these large bunkers that reduce your visibility, by having 5 players on the current sized field, you just end up in these inevitable stalemates, because it just the nature of the game and the probabilities of what's going to happen if you're a gunfight. I mean, you'll hear the guys that are like pros talk about, like, if you're in a gunfight, you've got 2 guys that are equally good gunfighters. It's just chance. Like, a lot of it's just chance of, like, whether the ball is actually going to hit the guy, because we know that paintballs don't fly straight. Like, there's a grouping, right? So I think it's just, I don't think that there needs to be like a change, like adding an advantage bunker or whatnot. Like, the game, we understand it, but I think that just the way that the nature of the game just draws out makes it that the winning strategy, or the meta, as the kids call it, is these defensive hold plays, right? On 3-on-3, you just can't do that. Like, you just cannot cover everything at once. You have to have you have to play paintball.
Right, for sure. And
yeah.
I think from, at least from the player perspective, right, they're always going to do what they think is high percentage, even when the numbers show otherwise. Like, looking at the top teams like Dynasty and Legion, like, they're playing a lot of points and they're winning a lot of tournaments, and everybody else thinks, oh, we're going to try and slow the game down, we're going to try and control it, we're going to try to play a 1-0 game like that. Teams are going to be set in their style, and I think everyone's going to try to slow the game down. I mean, we even saw that on our field in the playoffs, where the team that made the finals, they were going to the first spot and they were doubling up one of them. And so, like, teams are always going to play what they feel is high percentage. But as far as, like, from y'all's perspective, right, from the design, like the game design perspective, I think that having less players but same amount of bunkers and just creating and keeping the same amount of options has shown to be a more exciting end result. So I do want to keep going. And also my puppy does not like being trapped in here. So I'm going to ask the next question, and then I'm going to go attend to her for a quick second. So this one's for Sasha and for Jaybird, and it's brought to us by Mariachi Águilas de Oro. So y'all have hosted the 3v3 XBall format in open division, so open to players of any ranking. And we've seen multiple pro players come play your events. Jaybird, we've had Kaido Warner, Mike Urena, Andy from Houston Heat, just to name a few. I think Jake as well from the Hurricanes. Sasha, we've seen Jared Sherman, Nico Hyde, Diego and Geronimo come play your events. And Sasha, we had an event where an entire team was Nico, Diego, and Jero, so 2 Tauntaun FSU players, and the third one's Nico Hyde, who's now on X Factor. So what does it mean to both of you that pro players are joining in on the fun at your local events? Let's start with Jaybird.
Yeah, I think the most important thing with that is just that the team's players, just regular players, have an opportunity to even play with a pro player. I think it's a little bit difficult sometimes because you kind of have to know a player to get somebody to play on you or play with you. But it might be something where you could. I was actually thinking about this earlier because we had kind of touched about adding pro players into the roster for the open division, whether we allow them or don't allow them. But if we could get, say, for example, our open division, we cap it at 6, right? So if we could get 6 pro players to just volunteer, if that makes sense, right? And then we could just randomly assign them to some of the teams. I don't know, just to make it to where everybody gets a chance, right? Make that open division a little bit more appealing to some of the players that may be Division 4, Division 3 that aren't quite there, haven't pulled the trigger, if you will, to play. But it's cool. It's fun to see the pro players jump in the mix with like regular players that are just here as part of the tournament.
All right, Sasha.
Yeah, I mean, it was my plan. Like I know there's these pro guys around, and I want to get them out at the field playing and having fun. And it worked. Like I got Nico Hideout, who's out there in Johnson City, I think, or he might move, but. Like I knew he was around. I know he still wants to play, and I know that Jared was around. I just wanted to get these guys on the field. So, and then Diego Santos showed up. I mean, with the Tauntauns gear. I mean, it's great. It's great for the local scene. It's great to have these guys coming out and have them alongside the beginners and watch the beginners play, and then go watch the open division, just see the difference in the level. It's just a real opportunity. I mean, talk about growing the sport, right? Like what's more exciting. I tell my wife this all the time. I'm like, I know the guys from X Factor, because I'm at the field and I pit for them. And it's like the same thing as if she watches tennis. I'm like, it's like if you got to hang out with Federer, right? Or you're at or something like that. So for a fan of the sport, it's an incredible opportunity. Here in San Antonio, it'd be like if you're going to play basketball down at the Y and Tim Duncan walks in, like that's what you want. That's what we want in this sport, and mission accomplished. I'm getting those people out there. It's great.
Yeah, and I think an even bigger success was that the team with Nico and Diego and Jero, they didn't win. They got third. So one of these teams made up of local players that have been playing together for a little bit, they managed to knock this team full of Tauntaun players out, which is just a really cool story and a great experience, I think, for them. So Tom, this next one's for you. It's brought to us by Colt Roberts and his Regiment Paintball Kumite. So this format ended up being the one that you went with for the ESPN production. I know you said that this is the one that they specifically requested, but what do you think factored into that decision? And do you think that you're going to gravitate more towards the 3v3 XBall format for future potential opportunities on the big stage?
Yes and no. So they asked for it, one, because it was an unknown entity to them. Disney had never really hosted an event on site. Like you could see in my picture there, we were inside a stadium. So space was a concern, mess was a concern, how many cameras they were going to have, just the logistics of the event was the starting concern of that. So that kind of fit directly in with what we were looking to do. And then as far as the future, I mean, we plan on offering both products, both to the outside world and inside of the NXL. Obviously, the advantage of the 3-man is it's logistically smaller, and we can set. I mean, you can see the field that we set up there. I mean, our operations crew set that up rapidly. And so it frees us up to be able to do some of these really cool venues that we talk about. And I had said something in another podcast, but we've had an opportunity to do some stuff in the Vegas Strip, or to do stuff at like the close of the beach season in Ocean City, Maryland. And logistically, it was challenging to do it. We've actually had Dallas Cowboy Stadium was one of the places we had talked about doing something. And a 3v3 logistically is just a lot safer to pull off in one of those situations. And we can put it up in a day and take it down in a day and go play fast. So it does lead to that, but I still think that the 5-man is an excellent format. And we're really just going to offer that to the different TV groups and see if any one of them has a preference, because they're also going to have their own opinions. You know what I mean? They may like the more traditional long grind of an XBall match. It's something that's got a history to it. Or someone may want to try and go with a faster 3v3 type situation. So we'll keep playing that by ear and see how it goes. But I will say most of the TV indications have leaned towards 3v3. so
All
far.
right, fair enough. So we're actually gonna, I think we've talked enough about this one already. So we're gonna skip over that. I'm gonna switch this one a little bit. We're gonna go with some questions here in the chat. I do see that Shelda has asked a question. So, Tom, do you see Major League Paintball media changing next season? We already aren't seeing collaborations on socials anymore. That could hurt the growth of new media members trying to grow.
I appreciate that. We are going to continue back with the sharing. We had some change in personnel, and it was a lot all at one time on the social media side, and we had accepted some shares that didn't fit in line with our goals. And so we paused that for a little while. So expect to see that back up and running soon. It was just one of those things that we were out of our depth on real quick, and we just decided to put a pause on it too. So we will try desperately to get that back up and running.
All right,
you imagine you get bombarded with those, and if you click on a couple wrong ones, next thing you know, your brand is being associated with something you don't want it to be, or a sponsor that's not part of your system. So we've paused that. It is not by any means a policy change. It was more of just a hold. So good question.
Yeah. Well, thanks for addressing that. Dan, if it makes you feel any better, a couple of my posts have had stopped being shared for a little bit, and I'm under the MLPB umbrella. So it's not just you. So yeah, this one is for Sasha, and it's brought to us by 71 Design. So Sasha, with you being the first one to champion the 3v3 XBall format, and now that we're here on the other end of your series, what does it mean to you to see your creation play out on this scale?
All right. Well, first of all, I want to remind people that I'm not done yet. We've got the turkey shoot coming up in November, and as promised, I will be running the gauntlet again in my turkey suit. This time, I'm going to be doing it as a fundraiser for the San Antonio Food Bank. I haven't figured out how to do it yet, but this year it's not going to be just anyone gets to run out and grab a gun like Christian did and shoot me. You're going to have to
call those employee benefits. All right. I got to get something in there.
Yeah. Because we ran out of beer. So the angry refs can shoot me because they didn't get beer at the last event. But yeah, I'm going to do that so that to shoot me, you have to donate some amount to the food bank. I have not of money, not canned food, because they need money. But I don't know that I actually was the one that originated this. I definitely thought it up. I feel like I must have heard about someone else doing 3-on-3 XBall, but to me, it's just sort of a no-brainer. 3-on-3 is, I think, the better format. I think it's the better format. I'll say it. I think I can understand 5-on-5. People still play 7-on-7, 10-on-10. It's fine. You can have it. I think 3-on-3 is the best format for competitive paintball for a number of reasons. But I think, Tom mentioned that they were pitching it almost 9 years ago. So I think it's just a matter of just, it's an obvious move. People like playing XBall, and 3-on-3 is, the right number for a couple reasons. One is that if you're doing XBall, the point I'll make, and I talked to Tom about this at Dallas, is that I watch all the tournaments on Major League Paintball, and the thing you notice that May Marshall will say is like, oh, they've settled on their starting line. They've got 5 guys. And it's the same 5 guys going out at the end of the tournament on Sunday, 5 or 6 guys. All right, so what are the other 5 or 6 guys doing? They're riding the bench. So in the end, you've only got 5 guys playing anyway, and that's the number you need, 5 or 6 for an XBall format, right? And then for local guys or a local team doing my event where there's only 5 teams in one day, you don't even need that. You maybe need 4 people, right? Makes it super easy. So to me, for a local event to offer XBall, it logically, practically, it made sense. I guess I might pioneered it. Locally, but I don't want to be. Thank you very much for giving me all this, kudos. But I don't want to say that I'm the one that thought it up originally.
Well, I'll say it's I've been in the game for, I think this is my 11th year in paintball, and this year was the first I've heard of 3v3 XBall. And so it's, I'd say don't discount the amount of work that you've done throughout this year. And it's also been great to see that while a lot of series, especially in XBall, they'll see a gradual decline throughout the year, especially during the summer in the amount of teams that they've seen sign up. The San Antonio 3v3 has seen consistently selling out in beginner and novice, even to the point where you expanded beginner to 20 teams this event and sold out.
That was actually my fault because I messed up a registration, but and I had to make right, but I was glad I did it. I will say that for Open XBall, I have trouble getting people to do that event and to commit to it. And the reason is because I'm competing head to head with XBall and NXL. Like I have to plan around their calendar, and the customers I have for that division are probably playing XBL and or NXL. And Tom's division, NXL, XBall, what's it cost, Tom? Like over $2,000 just to step on the field for XBall, right? So, I mean, and I'm charging, even though I'm charging, I think $150, and I'll probably drop the price for XBall next season. Don't hold me to that, guys. But I'm considering it because like I'm doing well, I'm in the black, and I want to get people in the division and make it affordable to them. But yeah, it's hard to convince them. My value proposition is that you're getting a practice tournament and you're having fun locally. Like you could go do a scrimmage, or you could play an actual tournament scenario. You get some tournament experience, and you're not, bankrupting yourself and so forth. So yeah.
I know for myself, like my team plays D2. We're getting ready to go play D2 at Cup. And I'm trying to pitch to my, like, at least a few of the guys to be like, hey, let's go play this 3v3 XBall format that, we've all been reffing this whole year instead of actually playing. In my mind, even just from like a value perspective, it's like, well, we can pay however much it is for a 1 hour practice slot at Cup, or we can just pay a little bit more and get an entire event's worth with event refs, the intensity of being in those in-game situations against players that are actually, giving it their all. And I think from a value perspective alone, this 3v3 XBall format is well worth it if you are already going to be in the area at the time on Wednesday. So I would encourage anybody who hasn't gotten to play the format yet to go sign up. And this one kind of leads us into our next question for Jaybird. So this one's brought to us by Hydra. So Jaybird, your series finale is this upcoming weekend. And I know you and I have been talking about something pretty exciting for this last event. We touched on with Tom as well. So Jaybird, do you want to spill the beans here?
Yeah, man. So, we're really excited. Looking forward to the last event of our 3-part series here. But what we are doing is at the end of this, we're going to figure out who the series champion is overall, and they will get the opportunity to go play the 3v3 at World Cup. So we're going to give an entry to the team that wins the series.
All righty. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. I mean, 3v3 XBall, again, it's the format to be in, especially if you've been one of those teams in Texas that have been getting to play it all year. You're going to have a big advantage against some of these teams from all around the world that are maybe just, they've seen it on ESPN and they're going to try it for the first time, or maybe they've been watching some of the Wednesday or Thursday games on the pro division side. But these teams that have been playing here in Texas, they've got an entire series worth already under their belt. All right. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. If you haven't signed up for Jaybird's event, again, it's this Sunday. I believe the final deadline is tomorrow. So go sign up for the Splat Zone Trinity 3-man for this Sunday, and go try to win a World Cup entry for a 3v3 XBall. All right. So this next question is for everybody. Tom, we're going to start with you. This one's brought to us by Get That Shot. So for those that are out there that are weighing whether to add this format to their existing events or maybe creating an event entirely centered around this format, what would you say to them?
Well, adding it to your event is a no-brainer in my opinion. And that's one of the things that we're trying to offer. And you touched a little bit there. Like when you go to play World Cup, most of your expense is not actually involved in the entrance fee. You're playing the tournament. It's the travel, the hotel, the rental car, the time off work, and all that stuff. And so by giving you 2 tournaments in one, you got twice as many chances to win, twice as many chances to play. And we really saw when we added the 10-mans in those Sunday special divisions that a lot more people left happy than they did under the traditional play XBall and get knocked out on Saturday and then just be bitter all day Sunday that we blew a call or something. So this made it much better for everybody to kind of have a good time. And I think the same thing's going to hold true with 3-man. It gives you 2 chances to win, right? So so I think that's cool. And for any tournament want to do it, there's a value add to there. As far as adding it, I believe, and I'm looking at Sasha's numbers, right? Like it's an easy tournament to get good numbers at without a lot of like advertising and being forced to deal with a lot of rosters. Like the larger the roster, the more likely people are to sit it out, right? Because if they need to have all 8 of their guys available on a weekend, it just opens it up to less weekends. There's going to be weddings and birthdays and anniversaries and all those things that we have to deal with. 3v3 is just like an in and out quick, let's make it happen. And you're just going to have an easier time getting teams. And especially in markets that aren't, there's obviously a couple key markets, Texas, Florida, California, the mid-Atlantic, but there's fringe places like Alabama and Georgia and these places that are smaller markets that it's easy to get a 3-man going and get 3-man teams. It's just an easier thing to start. So I would suggest it to anybody.
For sure. Jaybird, you got anything to add?
No, I mean, I think one of the things that we're looking forward to next season is just kind of seeing getting more teams in the mix, adding some more Division 6 teams in there, and hopefully just expanding the overall participation. I think that's what we're looking forward to.
Cool. Sasha?
I don't recall what the question was, but I will comment. Was there a question that you want to answer?
Basically, for anybody out there that's either looking to add this format to their existing event or creating an event centered around the format.
Yeah, I mean, I would add that you don't have to do anything really special. I'm using the NXL 3v3 or XBall rulebook. I recommend don't do anything special. Just use the rulebook. The only thing that I do is, for XBall, it's a 5-minute time limit with a roster of 6, right? Other than that, and 3 on the field, obviously. Other than that, I'm using the same field dimensions. Even in this event, like I had everything more compact. So I had the bunkers were 20 feet instead of 10 feet away from the border on the sidelines and the wires. So it compressed the field, and that I got feedback that made the field more playable, or I think people like the smaller field, and they're allowed to go and play in the open if they want to, right? So you don't have to do anything different. Even with penalties, you and I discussed at before the first event, like how are we going to apply penalties in XBall, and we just decided to be the same thing. If you get a gross major, that means that you lose the next point because you weren't allowed to bring 3 guys on the field, so you have 0 players starting and immediately lose. Or if you get a major and you're the last guy, it's a 1-on-3 to start the next point, right? So you don't have to really do anything crazy or different. We're just playing the same game, and it still works. And I would also say that, like Tom said, I can run with 18 teams per division on 2 fields. We run the event and we're out of there without the open XBall. We're done by like 2:00. And that's a typical day at the field. So you can tell your, family, hey, I'm just going to play a tournament. I'm going to get up a little bit earlier. I'm still going to be home by 3 or whatever. I'm not flying to, driving to a different, state or city. I'm not flying anywhere. I think the vision for paintball, like Tom was saying, is that any field that has a tournament regulation field with bunkers, hopefully that don't have holes in them, which is always a struggle. But if you have a field, you should just run a 3-on-3 tournament, even if you just do it like 3 times a year. And at X Factor Paintball Park, I mean, I'm not privy to their numbers, but I know that there's just like explosion in the number of like beginner and novice teams that didn't exist a year ago are out there practicing like every weekend. There's a new team, Susios, that showed up and barely knew how to hold their markers, and now they're shooting the hell out of me on Sundays, and they're practicing every weekend. And I guarantee that that's, helping X Factor's revenue. Like, how can it not? and then it helps GI because they've got more paint coming in. That's all from me running 4 tournaments a year at that field. That's it. That's all it took. And it just blew up the amount of tournament players, and the amount of money they're spending in the sport and the amount of fun they're having. I think I would encourage any field owner out there. Now, that said, it's a ton of work, right? Like if you're already running a field, it's not a small amount of work, but I think you're going to see a return on it. I think you're going to see a return on investment just from what I've observed anecdotally at X Factor.
I mean, I would, just to chime in from what I see as the head ref for both of your series, like it's not too difficult to run. It's not like XBall where you have to have 8 to 10 referees, all who have some XBall experience, usually like a mid to high divisional guy. If you're lucky, maybe you get 1 or 2 guys that are NXL certified to come ref. And that is a very difficult thing to pull off all day. Whereas if you're running 3-man, you get 4, maybe 5 refs. And so like for half the cost of staff members, you're still getting, you're cycling 18 teams in and out of there. And we ran an entire event on time. That I think is enough said there in and of itself. Just the entire event finished on time.
The lesson I learned this past weekend, though, is you need to budget at least 2 Modelos per referee. Otherwise, we'll have unhappy referees. Yeah, I made a mistake there, 1 per referee, and then the referees were all, the beer was all gone before field 2 was done. But I made it up to field 2.
All righty. So yeah, I think that anybody out there considering it, you've heard it from everybody else here. It's a no-brainer. It's also a great place to start if you're not sure where to start. So I think that just about does it for our show. I'm going to look here in the chat to see if there's any other questions that made it in. Let's see. Roger Arbizu asked, Jaybird, what other kind of league or events do you do at Splat for new players over at your location?
For new players, the 3v3 series is really the one that's really geared more towards the new players. Again, we're providing equipment, we're making it super affordable. One of the things that I did want to look into this time around as we start this one is looking at the schedule, maybe making it so that the D6 players aren't as maybe they can all play together, their whole section in, that we can kind of get the other guys in. That way there isn't so much downtime in between. It might help get the event through a little bit faster. We do a 1v1 once a month here. It's a free sign up that we do. And that one's open for anybody to play. And then moving forward into the future, we do want to bring back our 2v2s. Again, just another quick pace, fast formula that people can play quickly and play a lot of points in that little small amount of time. Like for our 1v1s, it's only one other player, right? But we had one team in a 2-minute timer. They played about 15 total points. So, it's very fast paced, and you're rewarded for making that aggressive move. And even if you do get shot, you could just reset and try again, right? And make that adjustment. And that it goes back and forth a little bit more. So, but yeah, just look forward to the 2v2s coming back, and then definitely the 3v3s. We'll continue to rock that for next season, and just get that going.
All right. For sure. Sounds good. So I think looking at the chat, I don't see any other questions in here. So I think that does it. Thank you all for your time this evening. Do you have any final shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off? Let's start with Tom.
No, just thanks for having us. We are looking, I will say, like next year, we're looking to do a conference system for our 3v3. So there'd be an Eastern and Western, and kind of cut those days in half, with the same prize package kind of going out to give everybody the freedom to play and then also still practice. So that's one of the things we're looking at for next year. But no, I just want to appreciate having me on here.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, Tom, you've been trying to nudge and gently explore hosting events at paintball parks. I could see this being
That's one of
entryway
the other
there.
things. Yeah, I believe in the paintball parks. I believe somehow we've got to find a way to get, pro events in paintball parks.
Take advantage of existing infrastructure for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And also kind of give some home field, benefits, where people can come watch Fit or X Factor, you know what I mean? I mean, there's no question that when we're in Texas and a Texas team does well, there's an ambiance there, right? So imagine if it was, played one event at Splat Zone, one event at Giant, one event at X Factor, and one event in at PB Fit, and let that be the little tour of the pro circuit in Texas. It would create a vibe. So
definitely, I'm excited.
Yeah, we would be down for that for sure. Yeah.
All right, Jaybird, any last things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Thanks for having me on. We're super excited about the last tournament here of the series. We'll be live streaming it, so it will be available on our YouTube page. So you guys can tune in and check that out. And then, shout out to my wife right now. She's at the house with the kids, and she's the backbone for what I do every day, and gives me the support I need to be out here and working at the field, doing all the improvements that we're doing to get ready for these events. And then also, just holding it down at the house. So I love you.
All right, Sasha.
Yeah, I have to thank all the staff that come out and help me run the event. Kendall, Tanner, who I've known since he was a kid, Bert, longtime friend and former teammate. And then also my two boys who came out and worked, one willingly, one against his will, so he could get community service hours by scorekeeping. But then he declared afterward he had all his hours for the year and is never going to work for me again. And then, of course, all the referees who stand out there, get shot, and then drink all my beers when I'm not looking. Thank you, guys.
My pleasure. All right. So I think that does it. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow all of these leagues. Follow the NXL at NXL Paintball. Follow the San Antonio 3v3 series at SAT 3v3. And go follow Jaybird and his field at Splat_Houston. What other guests would you all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live Wednesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Central here on youtube.com/at Major League Paintball. And recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. I want to give a quick shout out to my partner and sponsor to your subscribers on Patreon. Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, BEM Raps, Hydra, XTPL Events, Mariachi Águilas de Oro, the San Antonio 3v3 Series, 71 Designs, TexanHemp.com, and the Splat Zone Trinity 3-man. Lastly, thank you to Major League Paintball for hosting the show. Thank you, Tom. And we will see you all next week for episode 161. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Good job. Thank you.